and a certain local crofter demolished it.
So that's another house?
Correct. And there is another garden up here somewhere. Okay, well, when people first come out into the Highland scenery, they look about and they see bracken and heather, and they don't see the houses at all because their eyes aren't accustomed to it. And yet if you get somebody standing at one end of a longhouse and I'm at the other end, and get maybe some other people standing round it, suddenly this house rises up out of the ground. And to imagine when there was 15 or 16 of them all around us, and the children playing, and the women talking and laughing, and the men in the corn kilns, and everything happening, it's quite amazing to think in this totally empty landscape. Yeah. But all the structures are still there, the division between where the humans lived, all the little slots where the crux would go. You could recreate one of these just with wooden crux, stick them in, and where the cattle were, and even where there would have been a pen, probably in that bit there for the bull. And these bulls weren't big like we imagine bulls today. They were much more like, but the size of a big donkey or something, you know. So it was quite easy to pen them in. We don't talk, we just wander. And they can speed it up. You know. But you can feel with your foot as you go along, you'll feel hollows where the posts are, actually. And little bits, sometimes there's openings like that where there was a door. I'm down in a post hole there. Mm? Yeah. And they have stones round them, so you'll feel the stones, and then in the middle is a big hollow, you know. Yeah. And the crux are big. They were as big as the ones we have in the museum, except they were made of old moss fir. Up here, the box beds would have been, and this was Ben the house in there, and a door especially going in, a peat fire in the middle of it, everyone round the peat fire telling stories. And if I go down, way down in here, somewhere around here would have been the fire. If you have a northerly gale, hurricane force shrieking over here, they're down in the lee of the wind, totally streamlined into the ground. You wouldn't even hear any noise at all. Time and time travellers would say they would go into the Highland Longhouse, Black House. Anything that wasn't tied down was blowing away outside, and inside it was completely quiet.
You know how it's sloping down?
Yeah.
Would they have found the ground already like this to have?
They dug down though.
Oh, they dug in?
Yeah, I mean, partly this is constructed with soil as well, which has been piled up with stones put on it. Right. And that's the footings, and then the next 5 feet would have been peat. The red peat from the top when they were cutting. And that had to be replaced every 5-6 years. So it's a continuous recycling process going on. And that's why I say they're biodegradable houses. If the peat fire goes out, the whole thing just goes into the ground. I'm going through the door there. Nice wee door. And they didn't actually have a door, they just had a wicker work. Like the same things they put the grain through.
There's another house that's on in the middle.
This is a granny house, yeah. And the door at the top, and the old granny be then, oh come in, hickey stoy, sit down. And of course the children would go in there and the old folks would tell them stories, you see. No television.
You really can see the houses when you've got somebody
oh, yeah.
pointing it out.
And that one's much higher. This is number 6, I think. And this is the one that we reconstructed because it's right beside the plaque. And we always get, we got Jeanette's class or something, and they would stand all around it. And it's just amazing to see it. Right at the top of, which is number 6 on the map, a fine example of the Longhouse. All the interior features are very clear. Down there was a wall with a door.
That's where I am.
Where Rosemary is. And it's interesting whether this was all humans in box beds or whether certain animals were kept in here. And whether they kept some of the horses in there, I don't know. Whether they would...
Much longer.
Well, that's where they might have had sheep away at the bottom. It was very bad winter. And then cattle, the bull in this pen thing that they had to contain them. But they actually had horses as well. And, or maybe this is more a work area where they were making butter and all the rest of it. Doors opposite, you see it in a lot of them, and they would open both doors when it was a gale, and they would fan the grain, and the grain would fall down and the chaff would blow away. And in the museum you've got the fanner, which does the mechanical 19th century version of that. So this is possibly the woman's work area, really, where all of this production of cheese and making beer and everything.
How many people would live in this space that you're standing
12 to 15.
12 to 15?
Sleeping in box beds, children all sleeping together in one. And they're getting the benefit of the warmth coming up from all those beasts down there. And of course the beasts also enjoying hearing the talk and the singing and feeling, you know, safe and everything.
So the animals got more space than the humans.
Oh, absolutely. And but these look very like Viking houses, almost identical. But it's parallel evolution, because when the Vikings were here, and they were here in between 800 and 1300 AD, the houses were boat-shaped. And why these houses are so long and the way they are, one, that they didn't have any timber, the forests had all gone, but chopped down, and you only had short lengths of timber, so you have to have 2 walls close together to make these archways. So it's a technical thing. And the other thing was very bad weather, because they have a mini ice age between 1300 and nearly into the end of the 18th century. It's bitterly cold, so these are survival machines.
And they are shaped like a long boat.
They are like a boat, and they're constructed like a boat turned upside down, except that the water's falling on you from the skies. But it's still, the mentality is there is water and it's attacking us, we will make a boat to cover it. And often they would take a real boat and turn it upside down, put one over a granny house. Yeah. That must often have happened. You can see it all over, you know, anywhere near the sea in Britain. This bit here is, you can see the stones where the bull would have been. And he would have been in a pen. And I'm saying he would have been all black cattle. He'd been about that size. That would have been the bull, and the cows have been quite small, you know, like ponies or donkeys maybe, I don't know. And the reason that these houses are so long is that by this time the crowns joined up in 1606 with James VI and First. Later on the parliaments joined up in 1706, whatever, and once the 2 parliaments were joined up, the end of an Auld Sang and all the rest of it, then they could trade with England. No problem. And they were sending cattle all the way down eventually to London.
Right.
Or wherever
so they were bred not just for themselves, but
no, they were making good money. And Rob Down, the great poet, he would go down, he was a drover, and they went down taking cattle exactly from places like this. This was battery farming. You know, except the humans lived in there with the creatures, and they had to get them through the winter. Here in the spring, they're kind of lucky because of the Gulf Stream and everything, and the northern, you know, funny climate they have, that they could get them out there and get grass maybe earlier in the spring than they would, say, in Aberdeenshire. And
so where the garden here behind me, where would the animals graze?
Up there. That's all grazing.
Just up on the hill?
Yeah. See, they weren't, as soon as the weather came in, about now really, If they had a hard winter, it might go on a bit longer. I mean, there's legends when they had very bad winters and they had to carry the cattle out, they would be so weak, you see. They didn't have turnips to feed them or anything like that in those days. So all the hay that they could get and straw and all the rest of it would have been eaten. And they would take them out and just lay them on the grass. And they would gradually eat and get themselves back on their feet again. That's the last of the crux coming in. You can see them very clearly, one there, one there.
There's one here. Yeah.
Now, at this part of the house, they had a turf wall,
Right.
which was made so that you could demolish it very easily. And it had a funny little gablet on the top, was made of soft peat with branches stuck through it, which was streamlined so that it came down like that. So the wind came this way, it was just like a boat to look at it. Now in the spring, exactly on a day like this, they say, right, and they'd knock that down, and that went into the midden,
Right.
all that turf that was in it, and they could get the cattle out, get them out to graze at long last, and then maybe sheep they might have in there. I don't know how they worked the system, and it'd be interesting actually to do more research on that.
Walk back up where you're...
And that was then left like that.
Right.
And they would only come back in if there was really bad weather or something later on, you know.
So while the animals were out grazing, this would be redundant, presumably. I mean, you wouldn't be using it for any reason.
Well, they had a lot of work in it. They had to muck all where the animals had been. They had to clear that out properly. If they were re-thatching it, which was every 3 years, they took the thatch and the soot, mixed it in with that and made compost, and mixed it up with the stuff from the byre, manure. And that was a major job, you know,
Yeah.
heaving that out and working day after day. So they had plenty to do.
So this is the start of the living area.
But the women, you see, they would, every morning they would take the ash from the peat ash, they'd go way down there and chuck it over the top of the poo of all the manure and the dung. So you have a layer of peat ash, which also mixed in with it and made compost. It's full of chemicals and everything. So their job was actually hygiene control and also keeping the smell down.
Right.
You know, so to a pleasant, earthy sort of smell. So nobody was idle. And if they were idle, they starved and died. Poor souls.